Happy New Year! Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on my thumbnail, especially as we start off the year 2025. I am excited to begin this year with you and tell you in today's video why my Black Friday purchases might not be quite what you expected. So for today's look, I wanted to play with the Aura palette from Ace Beauté, specifically because I feel like I never really touched these shades, these dirtier tones here, but I wanted to pair them with something different. And I thought, well, the palette is naturally paired with these more berry purple colors. What would be a different version of berry purple but would still work? Because I know that the berry purple works with the grungy tones. Here's Sickly Sweet from Blend Bunny, and I was thinking pink, because pink is just a brighter version of berry. I thought maybe pastel pinks into, I don't know, is that gonna be terrible? I don't know if that's going to be terrible. I'm going to start with the darker colors, and then I plan on bringing the pastels into my look at the inner corner and kind of playing with it from there. I'll make it work. It'll be fine. I already primed my eyes with the Glamlight Icing Primer. Everything I'm using is linked in the description box. Let's start with the shade Hazy in the Aura palette. I think I'll fill most of my crease with this color, gently soften it out, and then deepen from here. So, in today's video, we are talking about kind of a new project on my horizon. I've mentioned this once or twice in late December videos. A new project I was saving some palettes for, or considering some palettes when I was doing my declutter. It's something which I technically have started because I've started the process and gotten some supplies. And in case you hadn't guessed it yet, it is BYOP, Build Your Own Palette. Let me talk to you about my reasoning behind making this, I won't say decision or change, because first off, a bit of a caveat. I'm not planning on depotting or removing or tearing apart really any of my eyeshadow palettes. There are two that I might, but on the whole, I love to play with the palettes as they are. I really appreciate the packaging, the color stories, the curation. This is not a project where I want to destroy all of the beautiful packaging, which I appreciate and generally just enjoy, because I really feel like the packaging is part of the fun, it's part of the experience. I don't want to destroy all of that. What I want to do is use the palettes I own, which are already magnetic, and simply create new color stories with those. There are two palettes that I'm considering tearing apart to create new magnetic shades that will just live in a singles palette. But I haven't even fully decided, because those palettes are BH Cosmetics Blueberry Muffin, where I really love the quality, and I know that the colors are good, everything performs beautifully. I recently used it, but I don't really use it in its current setting. So I thought if I turn it into singles, then I can take those blues and silvers and creamy tones and mix them with other things, create a new palette. The other one I'm considering, let's go into Nimbus and deepen. The other one that I'm considering doing this with is the Hey Reindeer palette from Udenzai. And I'm more torn on that one, I think, than on Blueberry Muffin, because I feel like I might be able to just sell it and then procure a palette which is magnetic already. However, when I keep an eye on the secondhand market, the Hey Reindeer palettes don't really get snapped up. And I do like the colors of the Hey Reindeer palette. It's just that the way that they're laid out, and I think the external packaging as well, it just throws me off. I have trouble with the color story, but I like the colors, and I think that I would get more use out of those specific pans if they were singles and I could move them around and more easily combine them with other things. However, I really like the packaging, and it would seem like a bit of a sad thing to break apart all that packaging to get the shades out, but at the end of the day, I would rather use the colors than keep a pretty palette which doesn't get any use. So, if I thought for sure I could sell it and someone would snag it quickly, then I would do that. But I'm not seeing that reflected in the secondhand market. And I do like the colors. It's just the colors where they are, laid out as they are, that feels like it's not working for me. So I am considering tearing apart two palettes. But besides that, I have about, I think maybe a quarter of my collection, or maybe even a third, is shadows which have magnetic packaging already. Lethal Cosmetics, Unearthly, ColourPop. What else do I have up there? Sydney Grace. So these are all companies which provide the magnetic option, and I feel like that's just opening a door to BYOP. I was hesitant at first. Let me deepen a little bit more. No, wait, hang on. I'm going into Nimbus more. I want to deepen a larger space and then further deepen a small space. I was hesitant at first about the idea of BYOP for quite some months because I had sort of talked myself into thinking that it was all or nothing. There's a lady I follow on Instagram. Her handle is Faces by Gina, and she does a really great job really selling the merits of BYOP. However, when I look at her content, I see she has these huge palettes filled with all of these individual pans. And that's the resource that she has to create new color stories. She has really like just tons of singles. I don't have that. And I had talked myself into thinking, now into the shade Sultry, I talked myself into thinking that if I were doing BYOP at all, it would be an all or nothing kind of endeavor where I'd have to just commit completely. Tear apart everything, get a whole bunch of new empty palettes, and then organize all my singles, and I would say goodbye to all my beautiful palettes. And I just thought that it was go all in or don't do it at all. And I talked myself down from that because I realized it wasn't realistic. I mean, you certainly can do that, but I wasn't willing to. I'm not willing to sacrifice the beautiful packaging and the gorgeous color stories, which I love. I simply want to get more use out of them. So if I figure out which brands already exist in my collection, formulas I already really like, and then I just get a couple of basic supplies, like the little magnetic handled picking up tool, pan picker upper. If I get one of those and I get a couple of magnetic palettes that can house any singles that I might have outside of my regular collection, because a friend said that they might send me some Cleona singles, and I ordered some shimmers from Simply Posh Cosmetics with this BYOP in mind. They were like $1 for Black Friday sales. So I made all of my BYOP purchases over Black Friday. And I thought if I just get myself a couple of gateway entrance, like beginning products to try this out, I'd be able to determine if I actually like it. If I actually like BYOP. I won't know till I try it, right? It's so easy to look at a palette that's released and say, oh man, if they had just included, you know, a dark green, that would make it perfect. Or I wish there were a pastel purple. We can pick apart color stories that we see. And so I thought, well, if I'm sort of doing that, or I'm thinking how could a palette or color story be improved, maybe I can just make it myself. Now, the caveat there is I can't make it myself without a huge Faces by Gina kind of collection. And that's why I was thinking, well, I have to go all in or not do it at all. But realistically, let me backpedal a little bit. I do have a lot of palettes which are magnetic, and I can still make good color stories with what I have, even if it's not everything. All right, I'm gonna pick up the shade Sunburst. I very rarely use a true gold like this, and I'm gonna put it here. So I did make these BYOP purchases, now Moonlight, over Black Friday. I picked up some empty palettes from Give Me Glow. What I did was I got, I think, 3 that house 24 pans, and then 2 or 3 that are 12 pans, thinking, okay, well, I need a home for the singles that I got from Simply Posh, which, as I said, they were $1 a piece, so I got almost all those single shimmers. Okay, now let me bring in a pastel. What can I do to bring a little flair to this look? I'm swatching mattes. That's where we are right now. This is the shade Temper, which will be an easier thing to match to the warmth of my eye look than this, which is Rosy Cheeks. And Rosy Cheeks, I think, is not going to work in any way with my shirt. So I think I'll go with Temper. There are other mattes in here that would work even better, but I don't want to be totally expected. I want to be a little different. So actually, let me pick up first Just Peachy, which is a lighter peach pink tone, and I'll put that at my inner corner. Where was I? Oh, I got some magnetic palettes from Give Me Glow, and I thought the larger ones would house any singles, like my Simply Posh, and like if I do decide to tear apart one or two other palettes. The shadows need somewhere to be. So I thought I'll get the larger palettes to hold those. Now this is Temper. And then I'll go through all of my magnetic pans in my collection and I'll label them. And I'll pop up a video showing you guys my process. That way, when I take a pan out of a palette, so let's say, for example, I want to build a new color story using pans from my Lethal Wildflower palette and my Sorcerer's Smoke palette from Unearthly. Okay, that's fine. We're going back into Aura, and I'm gonna grab this shade here. It's called Chi, and I'm gonna use that with just in the outer corner and blend it into the Temper shade, and then also create some depth out here and blend it into my lid space. Okay, so if I were to take shades from my Sorcerer's Smoke and my Wildflower palette, they are labeled on the backs. So I can create a new color story, play with it, move things around, have a lot of fun. And then when I'm done with that BYOP, I just put all the shades back into their original palettes. So I can still use the Wildflower palette as originally intended. I can still use the Sorcerer's Smoke the way that it's supposed to be used, but I've also gotten an extra benefit where I played with those shades in a new setting with new colors and had even more fun. Do you know what I'm saying? This is kind of the crux of what I'm getting at. I don't want to tear apart the ones that I have and love, and I don't want to get rid of the joy of just, you know, picking up a palette and playing with a color story that someone else has curated. But what I want to be able to do is make a new color story, or maybe replicate something that I see that I can't go and buy, so I'll just try to recreate it with what I've got, or maybe even try to improve an existing color story. Well, here we go. I've added in the matte green or the pastel purple that I thought should be there, and now this is a color story that I love, and I get to play with it as well. And part of this is, of course, I like that. Part of this is that I'm using shadows in my collection, which I know that I like, because I recently decluttered all the ones that I wasn't using or liking. Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense. This is not gonna be like a whole BYOP channel. I'm not really sure how much I'll include on my channel here, the actual processes, because I think it's gonna be quite time consuming, and I don't know that I'll be able to film it and edit it and everything. It might end up being more like, hey guys, here's a palette that I built and I'm gonna play with it today. Or you might see the BYOP palettes in my while I was out. On this day I used my BYOP. Here we go. I think it might be more included in Instagram as far as seeing the palette and having all the shades labeled. If you follow BYOP content on Instagram, you probably know what I mean. You know, here's shimmers from Cleona or Glaminatrix, and then these are mattes from Udenzai and Lethal and Unearthly. You can see the way that people create their own palettes. I think that my BYOP content might be slightly more geared that direction rather than really changing the content here on my channel. I don't know. Tell me what you want. Are you interested in this at all? Do you think that it would be fun to watch me try to create a color story, you know, sift through my palettes? I need this color matte, and I think it will look good with this shimmer. Would that interest you at all? Because if you're really interested, then I can see if I can find a way to film that process without it taking an inordinate amount of my time. Let me finish up the other eye and then we'll close out today's thoughts and video. There's the eye look all finished. In my waterline, I used this coral sort of color from ColourPop. All the lettering's worn off, but I think it's called Bay Breeze. I do have some mascara on my lips. I'm wearing the lip liner from Italia Deluxe in 1065 Terracotta, and my favorite color from the NYX Smooth Whip. This is Latte Foam. And then I have a blush Super Shock Cheek from ColourPop in the shade No Vacancy. So that's everything. Yes, that's everything. I'm really glad that I took the risk for this eye look because I really wanted to do something that was warm using those shades in Aura, which I almost never use. Kind of like these more murky, grungy, mustard kinds of tones, but then pair them with something really different. And I think that pink was different enough, but still kind of safe, because even within the palette itself, like I said, you've got berries and purples. Pink isn't too far from berry and purple, so it gave me a little bit of something different, still light enough as an inner corner highlight. Then I've got the pinky, peachy, salmon kind of color on the lower lash line into the darker wine color from here. So I like it. I like the look. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, of course, but I think it's pretty and I'm happy to go through my day wearing it. As far as closing off my thoughts on BYOP, I hope that I've communicated to you guys what my plan is here. Again, let me reiterate, honestly, I don't think my channel is going to be changing at all as far as what I do, because I like the content that I put out. You guys seem to like it as well. I like using the palettes that I have as they are. I just want to take the ones that offer the flexibility of magnetic backings and use that to get more use out of the product which I've purchased. So all I did for Black Friday was buy some of the foundational starting, like getting going tools that I would need. The next thing that I'm doing in this process is just earmarking all the palettes that do have a magnetic foundation, like Unearthly, like Lethal, like Sydney Grace, and I'm starting to go through and label them one at a time, so that when I use the shades from the palette, I can easily put them back where they belong and have an unbothered full product again if I want to use it for a complete video. And besides that, I think that's it actually. The next step in the process is just to build my own palette. So I kind of anticipate it being a little bit untidy. What I anticipate having to do is lay all of my magnetic palettes on the table open and then start pulling from them to create a color story. That's what I think I'll have to do, and that's why I expect that it might be a difficult process to film. But let me know if you're interested and you want to see a little bit, just a smattering of BYOP content here on my channel as far as actually making the color stories. And if not, that's fine. I'm going to do it for my own purposes, and you might just see the palettes. I mean, you probably will. You'll just see the palettes in my while I was out, and over on Instagram I might take a picture. But this is just an entry, just dipping my toes in the water to see if it's something which I actually like to do. It's one thing to talk about it, it's a different thing to do it. And it's certainly a different concept entirely when you have to open your wallet and put out money to do it, which is why I took advantage of Black Friday sales, and I really only, it's a very, very small investment. The palettes were like $3 to $5 a piece, the singles were $1. And the Amazon purchase for the little magnet tool and some magnetic stickers, again, not much money. So I haven't invested a lot into this. I just want to see if it interests me, if it pleases me, if I enjoy doing it. I have no intention of taking a single and scraping it all out and putting it into a magnetic pan. No, I think that's called repanning. And depotting is taking the pot out of the palette. I'm not going to do any repanning. I don't want loose shadow everywhere. That sounds like a nightmare, especially because I just have, you know, concentrated time periods when my kids are napping where I get to play with eyeshadow. So again, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I appreciate your comments and your feedback. Let me know if this is something which interests you, if you have done it yourself, if you enjoy it, if you don't enjoy it, if it's worth the effort, if it's not worth the effort. Give me your feedback. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you so much. I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing before you go if you want to see more content like this. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.